Welcome to another edition of TM3 Impact. Today, I have a great buddy, Jared Goetz, the CEO and founder of Zendrop. Jared, welcome to TM3 Impact.
Oh, I'm super excited to be here, my friend.
Yes, I know. We just did your podcast about, was that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
A lot of fun.
Yeah,
we dove deep into a lot of topics that I'm quite passionate about, and I think the audience is going to love.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dive in. Here's how I like to start. I want to know your San Antonio story. How did you come to live in the city of San Antonio?
You know, it's funny. Every single person I've encountered that has asked me that same question because it's pretty random. You know, I grew up in New York. I've lived all over the place. I was in Atlanta for a few years. After I left my job, I moved to LA with my now wife. We did the whole like struggle out in LA lifestyle, get out there. We moved back to Florida for about 5 years, and then, you know, I'm in the tech space, and we were looking for like a cool, fun new city to move to, so we picked Austin.
Okay.
And we went out to Austin for about a month, and honestly just started like searching more on Zillow, like expanding out the radius. And then I was like, whoa, San Antonio seems pretty cool. And then basically we found the Dominion, the neighborhood. Right when we drove into the gates, I saw the golf course, and I was like, all right, that's where we're moving, because you know I like the golf lifestyle,
of course.
And I was living in a golf community in Florida, and I was worried that I wasn't gonna have a golf course. So found it. Noticed that there was maybe 10 or 15 homes for sale, and we got lucky and we found a home that was perfect for us.
Yep.
And you know, I'm a type of person that just goes with the flow. Yeah. So just ended up moving here very randomly, and just hunkered down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to the Dominion for reeling you in. That's exciting. Right in. Yeah. I love that. And so let's backtrack a little bit. You're an entrepreneur. Like, you're a tech entrepreneur. You've been doing this for a while. But I'm always curious about people's journey.
Yeah.
Because that, I think, you know, for most successful entrepreneurs, there's a story behind the story.
Oh yeah.
So let's get that early Jared entrepreneur. You're 15, 16. What was that Jared entrepreneur like? What were you into?
Yeah, my journey's actually been pretty wild, and there's been so many times where I thought there's no coming back from this. Yeah. You know, so I grew up with a single mom, only child, 1-bedroom apartment. She always worked several jobs, and I always wanted to figure out, how do I do more, right? I remember I was 16 years old, and I was visiting my grandma in Florida. And we took my aunt's minivan. My friend and I took my aunt's minivan. We were like driving somewhere, and we saw this Lamborghini. And I like looked in, and there was like this like young guy. He looked like he was in his like late 20s, early 30s, like wearing a hat. Like, he kind of reminded me of like an older version of myself. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that young guy's driving this Lamborghini. I was like, I opened the window. I'm like, what do you do for a living? And he's like, I trade commodities. I had no idea what that meant. And I'm like, I looked at my friend. I'm like, we need to start trading commodities. Which is not what I do. Yeah. Anyway, so early on in my career, I met a friend, and we started renting houses in the Hamptons for the summer. We would rent a house for like 2 months, and it would be like $20,000 a month for like a really nice house. And then we would sub-rent it every weekend to prom groups. Oh my! Because all these kids with prom parties, they wanted to rent houses to have a party in. But none of the homeowners would rent them the house.
No, of course not.
We would call, and this is a pretty sketchy bit. Like, I wouldn't do this now, but when I was 17, 18 years old, it was a
big
way
business
to make money, and it was fun. Yeah. So we'd call the homeowner, hey, we know our family's coming in from Europe for a month, and we need this house. We'd get the rent, we'd get it, and then we would find prom parties, and we'd rent it out every weekend for like 10 to 20 grand, so we'd make a profit each month. And that was like my first hustle. And so it was kind of like I got into the event space a little bit. Okay. And I'm curious though, Jared. I'm curious though, because
there's not a lot of juice on the squeeze. There's a lot of risk. Like, I'm just thinking as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old going, we're in these $5 million houses. Yeah. At any point did you go, wait a minute, this is risky?
No, not well, I was stupid back then. You know, I didn't care about risk back then. I was anything to make money. And there was a good amount of juice. You know, we're making 10 to 20 grand a weekend.
Oh, a weekend? I thought you were making 10 to 20 on the whole month.
No, per weekend.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we would make, 30, 40 grand for the summer. And for us as young kids, that was a lot of money for us.
That's a lot of money.
But it led me to my first opportunity because, once in motion, things just happen, right?
Yep.
So there was a prom group that was struggling to find a house. Okay. And it was like the last minute. And we ended up getting them into our house. And the girl who was like leading the whole group, her brother happened to be the biggest concert promoter, like one of the biggest concert promoters in the US. And he was like 3 or 4 years older than me. He lived one town over. So when we were going to college, I was like freshman, sophomore in college. He's like, hey, you did my sister a huge favor. If you're interested, we have Steve Aoki and Lupe Fiasco coming through your school on these 2 concert tours. Since you did my sister a favor, if you guys want to be 50-50 partners on these shows, be the head promoters, I'm going to give you that opportunity. You just have to come up with half the money. So I needed to raise like 75 grand. I was a sophomore in college.
So sophomore in college, you need 75,000 to be a 50-50 promoter for Steve Aoki.
And Lupe Fiasco. Back-to-back nights.
Wow. Okay.
So I raised the money. I went to like all my friends in my fraternity, and
how much did you have at that point on your like for you personally?
Like pretty much zero.
Nothing.
I mean, technically, I was massively in debt with my student loans.
Of course.
But I was like $500 from this guy, $2 grand from this guy, $7 from this one.
You raised 75,000 as a sophomore in college.
Raised 75,000.
Oh my god.
We pulled off the shows. So Steve Aoki was a Tuesday night, and Lupe Fiasco was a Wednesday night. We did both of them at the same venue. It was the Washington Avenue Armory.
Yeah.
We set it up so that we can have 2,500 people for Steve Aoki, and then opened it to 4,000 the next night.
Yeah.
We sold out the first one. Steve Aoki made 50 grand profit.
Wow.
Second night, we didn't sell enough tickets. We lost 50 grand. So we broke even.
Right.
So after like months of grinding and handing out flyers and putting up posters and doing radio ads and everything we could imagine to promote these shows, we ended up breaking even.
Okay, but I'm curious, what was it about the Lupe Fiasco that just didn't work?
We didn't sell enough tickets. The profit was on the last 1,000 tickets. It was an expensive show to put together.
Yeah.
But actually, that's what led me to my next thing. I was thinking, like, why couldn't we make money on this show? And I was like, well, we're paying Lupe Fiasco 100 grand to show up.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what if we come up with our own show that has its own appeal, but we don't have to pay these artists so much money?
Yeah.
And I was like, at the time there was this company called Dayglow, and they did the world's largest paint party. Okay. And I was like, well, what if we did the world's largest foam party?
A foam party.
Yeah. So basically, it was Halloween of the next year. I was a junior in college.
Okay.
And we rented the Washington Avenue Armory again.
Okay.
And we decided to throw the world's largest foam party. And we sold out. And we made like 50 grand on the show.
Wow.
And I had like 9 business partners. It was like everyone was a business partner. I was like leading it all, but I had to get all the money from everyone, and they were all partners.
And you had to pay everybody.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, like the other main guy, and me were like, all right, let's do this for a living. Like if we can do this 20 times a year, we're making $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just started.
How many partners at this point when you finally say we're going to take this?
Just one other partner.
One other partner. Okay, got it.
He was a friend of mine, a roommate. He was like the crazy guy in college, but he was like so charismatic and so good at promoting that we figured if we went to other colleges for like 2 months at a time, we can sell out shows. We just got to get on campus, start talking to people, create. We had all these hacks, like how to get a face. We would literally go around on college campuses and say, hey, we're doing the world's largest foam party. Can you do us a favor? Log into your Facebook. And we had this JavaScript that would invite all their Facebook friends to the event on Facebook.
What?
So we'd get like 300,000 people invited to an event in like 5 days. Wow. And we would literally just go around.
Which is for free. Yeah, this is all free.
Dude, we would just go around college campuses and just literally, all right, let's try to get 30 people to invite all their friends, right? Yeah. And then we'd go to the dorms. We'd knock on doors. I mean, we were like grinding, hustling.
Did anybody want to be paid? It was
whatever. It was like, hey, if you're charismatic and charming and cool, college kids are down to just help you out.
Yeah,
and we were in college too.
Yeah.
So, and it was funny because people are like, "Oh, who owns this business?" And we'd be like, "Oh, our rich uncle owns it." You know, so we didn't seem like we're like,
yeah.
So no, that went on for about 2 years. We did our first.
So you were able to do that for 2 years.
2
the
years.
Phone parties.
Yeah, oh yeah.
How many phone parties do you think you did?
We did like 20.
20 phone parties.
Yeah, but they were like toward the end they started getting big. We sold out Webster Hall in New York City. Our biggest show is where we lost all of our money. So this is where like the next chapter happens.
Okay.
So there was UMass Amherst was the school.
Okay.
And they have a venue called the Mullen Center. That's where they do their basketball games. And I had my sights set on UMass on the Mullen Center. I was like, that would be the most, all the big artists were going there. Yeah. And we were talking to them, trying to convince them. And then after about a year, they get back to us and said, "Hey, you're approved to do the show here."
Okay.
And we're like, okay. All right, we budgeted like maybe $200,000 on the show for the venue, for everything, for the production. But at the time, I was young. I was 22. I didn't really know what I was doing cash flow management wise. Yeah. I was just like using ticket sales from one show to fund the other one. And it was a mess. No bookkeeping, no accounting, just hustle, grind, no reflection, no planning, just go. And so we booked the show and we ended up under budgeting tremendously, and we ended up losing all of the money we had on that one show. And on top of that, we didn't have enough money to pay back some of our vendors. And there was this kid who wanted to be a famous DJ.
Yeah.
He inherited $50 million.
Okay.
And we made a deal. Hey, if you invest $50,000 in the show, you could play on the main stage and you'll get your pro rata share of profits.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't have any cash, so we couldn't give him back any of the money. And
you didn't make any money.
Well, yeah, so his trust fund manager made him sue me.
Oh, God.
So now I'm like 22, 23, and I have no money to my name. And I had built up like this big, persona, right? My ego started getting bigger. I was living in a penthouse in Miami. Like life was really cool.
Yeah.
And then I had nothing, so I had to move back in with my mom.
Yeah.
And I moved back in
at 23.
At 23.
Okay.
23 turning 24.
Okay.
I moved back in with my mom. I have no money. I was very stressed, very anxious. I had this lawsuit. He sued me for $250,000, and I couldn't even afford a lawyer.
Right.
So I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. Every day I was anxious, stressed, depressed. And I read a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Okay. And that was like my entryway into like personal development. It was a cool story.
Okay. So interesting. So you were doing all of this business just kind of like just flying by the seat of your pants, just going
flying
for
by
it.
the seat of my pants.
You hadn't read any books, no
No.
entrepreneur books, no business books.
No.
Nothing.
No.
Not one personal development at this point.
Nothing at that point.
Had anybody ever talked to you about any of that stuff?
No.
Okay, interesting.
No.
Okay, keep going.
No,
so
no, I was
you
like
read Peaceful Warrior.
Yeah, I was like a major partier in college, like bad at school, but just like a hard work ethic, and I thought I was smarter than I was, and I thought I could do more than I was actually able to do. Anyway, I'm back with my mom. I read this book, and I'm like, I'm going to start getting up a little bit earlier and going for walks. She lived in Freeport, New York, so like if I walked maybe 20 minutes, I can get to the water, get up, maybe jog over the water, sit down for a minute, just kind of like try to let go of my stresses. Yeah. And lo and behold, right when I started doing that, I get an email from a startup called Yik Yak.
Okay.
Social media app. A lot of people know what that is because it was so big. They reached out to me. They just raised their Series A. So they raised $10 million. And they're like, hey, we want to sponsor your show, Electric Flurry. That was the name of my phone party. Like, we want to sponsor your show. We want to get into the college market. Yeah. And I'm like, I can either probably use this to throw more shows, maybe get them to fund them. And I was like, but I don't know if that's best for this company. Let me just tell them what I think is best for them, which is, why don't you go to college campuses and promote your app the same way I promote my shows? We're able to sell out shows. If your app is free, we could probably get thousands of downloads. Yeah. So I told them this whole plan. Yeah. And I was talking to their head of marketing at the time, and he's like, our CEO wants to talk to you. And I was like, all right, cool. Hop on a call with him. They text me a little while later, hey, can you fly out to Atlanta and meet with us? I'm like, sure. Yeah. When? They're like, how about tomorrow? I'm like, all right, no problem. We'll get you a ticket. Yeah. They sent me a ticket, flight the next morning at 6 a.m. I tell my mom and stepdad, I'm like, I may be getting a job with this company. I don't know. Yeah. They want me to fly out. So fly out. I get to Atlanta. Yeah. I get to their office, and it's like really cool. I was like, in my head, I thought it was like, I was so used to my operation, which was so fly by night and like fly by the seat of your pants and like, whatever. I thought it was going to be like some apartment with like 4 dudes. Like, but no, they had like this cool all glass office in the Atlanta Tech Village.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, this is cool. This culture is cool.
Yeah.
And they wined and dined me a little bit. Like that night we went out to dinner and we went out, and I was like, I like this vibe.
Yeah.
So they were basically like, hey, you gave us this whole plan. Do you want to come do it for us? And I was like, long story short, we negotiated a bit, and I said yes.
Okay.
So I started in August.
So salary? Is this salary position?
The salary and shares.
And shares. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my mission was it was like August 11th, I believe.
Yeah.
And college started in September. So I had 30 days to plan a college tour.
Okay.
Meaning I had to get a tour bus, a 45-foot tour bus. I had to get the tour bus designed and wrapped. I had to hire a bus driver. I had to hire 8 people to come on the bus. I had to get a yak mascot. Okay. We had to get all the merchandise. I got a mechanical yak, which is basically a mechanical bull that we fitted to be a yak.
Yeah.
I had to get all this stuff shipped out to Washington State because we're going to go down the West Coast.
Yeah.
Get everyone there. It was like, not only that, I had to figure out what schools are we going to go to.
Wait, by this point, were you still in school? Or
No,
were you done?
no,
You
I
were
was
done.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Keep going. Yeah.
I had to figure out what colleges we're going to go
Yeah.
to. I had to get a contact at every college. And
Holy
I had to
cow.
book hotels at every town that can support a 45-foot tour bus with a trailer.
Yeah.
So it was a ton of planning.
And a yak, mechanical yak.
Yeah. All in 1 month, I had to do this.
Holy
So
cow.
I was grinding. I hired on a friend of mine to come on as my assistant.
Yeah.
And we pulled it off. I lived on this tour bus for 4 months. What? We went to 35 universities. I had a camera crew with us. And
you were videotaping everything.
And we would have the mascot go on
was
campus. This was back in 2014.
Wow.
And it was such a success. We grew from 100,000 monthly active users when the tour started.
Yeah.
4 months later, we had 10 million monthly active users.
In 4 months.
In 4 months. And the tour was a huge success. So Yik Yak was able to go raise their Series B. We raised another $62 million.
Because of that.
Because of that. And
Yeah.
they're like, all right, we need to do these all over the world.
Yeah.
So after doing the whole tour, I derived what was the cheapest way to get a new user on the app.
Yeah.
And, we had the bus, we had the yak, we had this, that, whatever. The simplest way to get someone to download the app was to trade them a pair of Yik Yak socks for them to download the app.
Stop.
So we did all this to find out that if you give them a pair of socks, they'll download the app.
They'll
It was
download the app
it was
just
like
for
80
socks.
cents a download. So we're like, all right, we want to break into other countries. So we looked at England, Ireland, New Zealand, and Australia.
Yeah.
So next year, I need to go to all these countries and do tours.
Okay.
So I got to travel the world for the next year and a half or so.
You actually did this?
Yeah, so I went to Australia
Okay.
for 2 months. I went to New Zealand for 2 months. I went to England for 2 months. I went to Ireland for 2 months.
No bus, though. You were kind of doing this
No
with
bus.
just like the socks and
I hired really cool, like fun, charismatic people in each of these countries to come with me and my assistant at the time.
Yeah.
And we went to these schools with humongous duffel bags of socks. We would ship them overseas, and we bring the yak mascot. And it would literally like, okay, we're going to University of Dublin, and we need to get 1,000 downloads in the next 3 days. How are we going to do it?
1,000 downloads.
So if we learned that if we got 1,000 downloads over the course of the next 2 weeks, it would turn to 4,000 users because of word of mouth.
Yeah.
It was the network effect.
Yeah.
That was the critical mass point, 1,000 users. So my job was to go to all these campuses in all these countries and get 1,000 downloads per campus.
Wow.
And so we literally would go with a huge duffel bag of socks.
Yeah.
We'd bring the mascot.
Yeah.
And I would literally go on campus.
Was your assistant dressed as the mascot? Who's
I would wear it sometimes.
You would wear it sometimes.
Yeah,
You would just switch it up.
You gotta lead by example, right?
I stinking love it.
So I wasn't too cool to wear it. I wore it, and it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah.
And so University of Dublin. How are we gonna get 1,000 downloads? We have no contact there. We have nothing. So we show up. Hey, excuse me. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So we're here from the U.S. We have this app, and we're looking to get a bunch of people. Like, what are the coolest nightlife spots? What are the coolest, like, blah, blah, blah? And we would learn.
Yeah.
And then we would go there. Hey, can we sponsor a party tonight? Can we bring the yak? Can we bring these socks? Yeah, sure. We'll buy 500 shots up front. We'll give it because the drinking age in Europe was cheaper. And we'd exchange. Oh, you get a free shot if you download the app. Whatever I had to do to get 1,000.
Yeah.
And we would get 1,000. We'd move on to the next school. And I did that for about a year.
All across the world.
All of New Zealand, all of Australia, all of England, and all of Ireland. We went to all the universities in these countries.
That's wild.
All the big universities.
Yeah.
And so anyway, those tours went really well.
Yeah.
And so then we decided to sponsor spring break at Lake Havasu. So my job is now go live at Lake Havasu.
Oh,
we got a 250-foot inflatable slip and slide, like with a big yak head that spits water down. Like we spent like $75,000 on this thing
just to build this float.
Just to
this
build
slide.
it for Lake Havasu.
Yeah.
And so I went out, lived out there for a month. And while I was there, a friend of mine, because I had started building a reputation for being good at marketing, right? With Electric Flurry, with Yik Yak. A friend of mine was in China at the Canton Fair because he was importing electronics for his business. And he calls me. He's like, Jared, I found this product that I think we got to do something with. And I was like, what is it?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to send you one because you're not going to believe me. And I was like, okay, send me one.
Yeah.
So about a week later, I'm still at Lake Havasu. I get this package in the mail, and it's this heavy box.
Heavy.
I'm like, what the hell is this thing? So I open the box, and I pull out a hoverboard.
Yeah.
But it was before anyone had ever seen hoverboards. I'm like, what? Like, no way. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
I plug it in. I had like maybe 5 people in my room, and I get on it, and I'm like, whoa, I can't balance. And then like I finally caught my balance, and I'm starting to ride it around the room, and everyone's like, oh my God, like, that's
I remember
crazy.
the first time I saw a hoverboard.
So I start riding it around the Lake Havasu resort that we were at, and everyone's running up to me like, where did you get that? How much was it? Where did you get that? How much? I'm like, I don't know how much it is. I don't know where you can get it. And I'm like, I need to start selling these.
Yeah, we need
I need to
to
start selling these.
Yes.
So I found a supplier that can ship them directly to a customer for $300.
Okay.
So I started going to the Starbucks at like 7 a.m., working on a Shopify site. I took pictures with like this camera, just made a brand, literally like hired someone on Upwork to make a logo. Yeah. And I printed out business cards with my company website. And anytime anyone asked me, where do you get it? I said, right here.
Order one here.
And now I started riding this thing around the malls, the airport, and everyone's breaking their necks looking at it. And I started selling like, there were days where I would sell like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm making $1,200. I was selling them for $1,500. So I'm making $1,200 each time. And
that's insane.
So now I'm making more money than my salary. And I'm like, how do I sell 1,000 of these and make $1 million? Now I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, okay, I have one friend that has like 30,000 Instagram followers. Maybe if he posts, someone will buy it.
Yeah.
So, and he was a professional snowboarder.
Okay.
And he was really good at riding it. So like he would post on his Instagram and we made like a few sales. And I was like, whoa. I was like, he's got 30,000. And he happened to know all these kids in LA that had like millions of followers. And after, talking, whatever, he's like, hey, I got us a meeting with Nash Greer, Hayes Greer, Kenny Holland, and I forget the name of the other person. Mm-hmm. But they all had like anywhere from like 5 to like 15 million followers on Instagram.
Wow.
So we fly out to LA and we go to their house and they're riding it around the tennis court and they're all like mind blown by this thing. Yeah. And they invite their manager over. He was a little bit older than them, maybe in like his early 40s.
Okay.
Cool guy. And he's like, Jared, these kids never want to do business deals. Like, I'm always trying to push them, but they are begging me to do something with this.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
okay,
I think I'm on to something here. So I'm like, all right, I don't have that much money for inventory. And like, so I'm like, what if they all invest $5,000? They each get 5% of the company. I'll give them 20% total. Yeah. And then they can all post and blow it up. Yeah. And that's what we did. And our first month, we sold about $250,000 in hoverboards, literally from a few posts. Now I'm like, whoa, I'm about to make millions of dollars.
Right.
So it gets a little crazier. I find out that Mark Cuban is buying the patent on the hoverboard. I didn't have a patent on it, right? I'm just getting these things from China. Yeah. Some guy in China had the patent. Mark Cuban's buying the patent. And I'm like, first my heart sunk. I'm like, oh, this is not good. Like our business is good. And then I'm like, wait a minute, maybe this is an opportunity. Yeah. So I'm like, I need to get in touch with Mark Cuban. I don't know how.
Now, this whole time, you're still at Yik Yak.
I'm still at Yik Yak.
And this is kind of like a side project.
Yeah, and I'm considering leaving because I'm making more money. And so anyway, I'm like, I got to get in touch with Mark Cuban. Yeah. And I'm like, how do I do that? Like, I don't know anyone that knows him. And I found out he had his own app called Dust. And it was like a messaging app where all the messages disappear. So like...
interesting.
So it's like, maybe if I message him on Dust, he'll answer. Yeah. So I download Dust. I message him on Dust. I'm like, hey, Mark, this is Jared Goetz. I own Glider. It's a hoverboard brand. I heard you're buying the patent. Let me know if you're interested in talking. And about 5 minutes later, I get a response. Hey, let's talk. I'm like, whoa.
What?
Hold on a minute.
Now, this is a story. I do not know this story.
So it gets interesting now. So Mark Cuban answers me. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So then I have to go back to Australia for like maybe, I think it was like 2 more weeks or something like that. And I fly back from Australia, and I was taking a little break because I had been on the road. I'd been grinding, hustling. So it was I came back to New York for a little break, and I'm texting with Mark Cuban at this point, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to call you on Friday. And it was like a Tuesday or whatever. And I'm like, I just got back to the U.S. I'm super jet lagged. I'm hanging out at my mom's place, and I'm waiting for this call from Mark Cuban on Friday. And I'm like, you know, I have a bunch of friends in New York that I wanted to see and go hang out with. And I'm like, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to like go drink and like be in a bad state of mind. I want to be sharp for this call with Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Friday at like 5 p.m., he's like, hey, sorry, I've been tied up with the family. I'll call you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, fine. Like he pushed it back like 2 times.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go hang out with my friends Friday night. We go out and we're like, I'm kind of feeling like on top of the world because I had like maybe 10 grand in my bank account, which is like the most I've had in a long time. And I was just feeling real good, you know? And so I go out and I'm like drinking and I'm partying. And Mark, so anyway, so the next day, Saturday, I'm hungover. Yeah. And I feel horrible. And we're walking down the street in New York City, and we pass a kava bar. And I had heard about kava. It was like a drink that makes you feel relaxed. Yeah. And I love like trying new things. So I'm like, let's go try some kava. And the guy, you know, we get there and the guy's like, yeah, you need to drink 2 bowls of it if you've never had it before to like break your, you know, to break your barrier and feel anything. So
what is it? Is it a caffeinated thing?
No, it's like it's some root.
A root,
like
okay.
A root from Southeast Asia that just like makes you feel relaxed or whatever.
Okay.
I just wanted to try it.
Yeah. So
I drink it, and then I find out that if you have alcohol in your system, it makes you feel sick. And I still had alcohol in my system from the day before. So I'm like, you know, I drink this thing, I go back to my friend's apartment, and I'm like, I have to throw up. Yeah. So I'm literally like head in the toilet bowl, throwing up. I get a text from Mark Cuban, calling you in 5 minutes. Oh. And I'm like, no, this is the worst possible time. I felt all like loopy and lightheaded. I'm puking. My eyes are bloodshot. And so I'm like, all right, Jared, you got to get it together. Splash water on my face. I'm in my friend's like tiny apartment in New York. They didn't even have an elevator. It was like, you know, the cheapest apartment in New York City. Yeah. I run down like 7 flights of stairs. I'm waiting for Mark to call me. And I'm like, all right, you got this. You got this. Yeah. Calls me. I get on a call with him. He's like, Jared, how's it going? I'm like, oh my God, like Mark Cuban really called me. Yeah. So I'm on a phone with him and we talk for like 15 minutes. Yeah. And he's like, you know, I really like the brand that you built and I'm buying the patent on this hoverboard. I'm interested in partnering with you. And I'm literally like, how is this happening right now? Yeah. Mark Cuban wants to partner with me on the hoverboards? Yeah. So I get off the call with him. I'm like, it's October at this time.
What year? 15 or 14 still?
I think 15.
15, okay.
Yeah. It's October, which means, you know, November, December are the biggest months of the year to sell hoverboards. Oh, yeah. So he emails me the next day. He's like, hey, I want to partner with you, but you need to stop selling your cheap Chinese knockoff hoverboards and wait for my patent to go through in February. So my partner and I are like, man, like we could probably make like a couple $1 million in November. You know, we sold, we couldn't even keep up with the orders from these influencers. And I'm like, you know, I could either make a few $1 million or I can wait until February and partner with Mark Cuban and maybe that'll be worth hundreds of millions. Maybe who knows what that'll be
who
worth.
knows? Who knows?
So me and my partner are going back and forth on it for like a few days. And like, we're talking to his dad, and his dad's like, "You guys need to keep selling." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I really want to partner with Mark Cuban." And it was a really hard decision. Yeah. And we decided, let's stop selling. Let's partner with Mark Cuban.
So I'm gonna pause you right there. So I'm like, I love this because I don't know this part of the story. Yeah. I love this. I'm wondering at this point, like, what is like, because I know like who you are today in terms of the reflection and the walks that you do and the perfect walk. And I know who you are today. I'm wondering obviously you have everything going on with Yik Yak. You're trying to run that and you've got this massive opportunity. You're selling all of these hoverboards. What are you using you read the book. Did you start doing anything else from a self-development standpoint to really kind of like give you the clarity on the decision that you made?
Not yet. I get there soon. So this is still before the personal development stuff.
But you read The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Was any of that where you're able to kind of like pull in?
I was like, I became aware of some of this stuff, but I didn't really dive deep until like a couple of years later.
Okay.
So yeah, basically we stopped selling. Long story short, he doesn't end up getting the patent, but it was all good because it was fun. We made some money. I left my job at Yik Yak. I flew out to China myself.
Okay.
To go to the Canton Fair to try to find the next hoverboard.
Yeah.
And I'll sum up this next chapter. I found some other cool products. I started importing them to the U.S. and I was, selling those inflatable loungers. I was selling. People that are listening definitely know. You wave them through the air, they fill up. They like a little banana.
Yes.
So I discovered those. I brought those, and then so I was selling. Like I was going to trade shows. We're selling to retail on Amazon, Shopify. We're grinding. We had 5 teams on the ground every weekend at different music festivals, and we're just like selling these things. And that's when I was living in LA.
Okay.
And so it was we were at a trade show called Outdoor Retailer.
Okay.
And we were there for 3 days, selling, talking to people, and it was I had a flight the next day back home at 7 a.m.
Okay.
And it was midnight after 3 days of talking to people. I'm exhausted. I'm like, all right, I got to get up early, go to the airport. And I get a little ding on my email that says, it was from a marketer. He says, how to sell products without ever seeing or touching them. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, let me open the email real quick. Open the email. I watch a webinar on drop shipping.
Okay.
And I was fascinated by drop shipping because I can go on AliExpress, find any product I want to sell, put it on a Shopify store and run ads to it. So my brain started going crazy.
Yeah.
I got to the airport the next morning at 4 a.m. So I had some time. I built my first drop shipping store. And that store grew from 0 to $2 million in 60 days. So that's where
gracious.
And right around that time is when I discovered. So let me intersect that story with kind of how I started diving into this personal development stuff.
Yeah.
So I fly back to LA. My wife and I, before, she was my girlfriend at the time, we had decided we're moving back to Florida.
Yeah.
And we were moving in so I was supposed to fly back and then I had 5 days before I was going to drive from LA to Florida. And a friend of mine, Brett Lockett, who's an ex-NFL player, he was a mentor to me, cool guy. Yeah. He invited me to go do a Tony Robbins seminar with him.
Which one?
UPW.
Okay, yeah. Unleash the power.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't really know about this, but whatever. Brett's going. Yeah, I'll go. It sounds fun.
Where was this at? In Florida
this
or
in LA?
In LA.
So this is before. Okay. So I was supposed to leave for Florida the day after the event's over.
Yep.
Right. So I started the drop shipping store, and it was I was making a few $100 a day, and I go to this event, and I'm mind blown by energy and all this stuff I was learning. And we did this one specific meditation where you imagine yourself as someone else who just truly loves and cares about you, looking at your future life. So I imagine myself as my aunt because she always wants the best for me.
Yeah.
And I'm basically walking up to my future house. I'm looking at my driveway. I'm admiring my cars. I'm walking into the house. I'm admiring the paintings and the pictures of my family on the wall. I'm walking into this beautiful home. I walk up the stairs. I'm admiring the master bedroom. I walk into the bathroom and I look in the mirror and it's me the whole time. And it was whoa, I just loved my future life without sabotaging it from my own lens. Yeah. And I had this crazy feeling I've never felt before. Fast forward, we're driving from LA to Florida. All these thoughts started coming to my brain seemingly out of nowhere. Yeah. It was try little things, try to double this ad set or try to whatever. So I had to hire people to run my store when I was driving. Yeah. So I would think of something, make a call. Hey, let's try doubling this ad set. Let's try duplicating this. Let's try this, whatever. During that drive, my store went from doing about $1,000 a day on day 1. Day 2, we did $2,500. Day 3, we did $7,000. Day 4, we did 15. By the last day, I did $50,000 in sales.
In a day.
In one day.
Yeah.
And it went from 1,000 to 50,000 in 5 days.
Yeah.
So I was this is too good to be true. Thank you, God, but I know this isn't going to continue. So my bank account's growing tremendously faster than it ever has before.
Yeah.
Fast forward, we get to Florida. About 2 months later, I had to drop off Madeline to go do someone's hair. She was a hairstylist. Yeah. And I had 2 hours to kill. And I'm I can either go home or I'm I'm sitting up. I'm scrolling on cars.com. I have all this new cash in my bank account. I'm looking at cars, and I see this Lamborghini at the dealership. It's 5 minutes away from me. So I'm I'm just going to go look at it. No plans.
Yeah.
I end up buying it on the spot in cash, and then I'm driving it for 2 weeks, and I realized that car was the exact same car that was in my vision in my driveway.
Yeah, it unleashed the power.
Wow. I somehow manifested this physical car from a vision.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's more to this than I had realized, because I just experienced. I went from like pretty much having, I was grinding, I was working hard, but I didn't really have much money.
Yeah.
I was just getting by.
Yeah.
I was supporting us in LA, but like not really doing well, like not rich by any means.
Yeah.
To driving this car that was like a dream car of mine in my vision, about 60, 70 days later.
70 days from that vision.
And it happened in a way that I could have never expected it to.
Right.
So at that moment, I was like, okay, I need to dive deeper into this personal development stuff. And that's when the journey really started.
And so that would have been what year? That would have been 15 or 16?
That was like, I think, 16,
Yeah,
going into 17.
So you get to Florida and you have this car, and I would imagine that would have, what was it that, how did that change you?
So, well,
just because you see this vision come to life.
Yeah. So I realized that, like, if you can visualize something and put emotion behind it, somehow the universe works in a way to get it for you. I didn't realize this that deeply yet. Now I do.
Yeah.
But I realized that there's more to manifestation than I had thought.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to rent us a condo on the ocean for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm going to really dive into this stuff. I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go on my walks. I'm going to visualize. And I when I was at the Tony Robbins event, he always talked about how, like, he bought a house, or he rented a house that was like out of his budget, but it changed his standards.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go rent a condo that's like out of my league, so I can change my standards. And we got this condo on the beach. It was like 21 floors up. We had a 180-degree wraparound balcony, like, see the sunrise through all the glass windows. It was an unbelievable view.
Yeah.
And I just started getting up every morning, going down to the beach for sunrise, like bringing down a cup of coffee and some like good music, and just really trying to feel this energy.
Yeah.
And, from there, I mean, in the last maybe 6 or 7 years, I've spent thousands of hours meditating. I've read hundreds of books. I've been to, countless seminars. I've been to meditation retreats. I've done plant medicine journeys. And all these experiences, not necessarily, you don't necessarily learn new things. You learn the things that you thought you knew at a deeper level.
Yep, that makes sense. Yes. Yeah. So when you think about now, obviously the level of, because from the time that you had this, the UPW, right? Like the Unleash the Power, and you have this vision, between that and then the car shows up. This was a very short time frame, right? Very short time frame. What do you say to the entrepreneur right now who's listening to this, and they're like me? They're just like this. Your journey is so incredible. It's got the highs and lows, and I this is one thing I need you to touch on is that in all of everything that you had, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think people need to understand that, and that even when the Lamborghini comes into the picture, it's still not always rainbows and unicorns.
Not even close.
And I think that's something you have to touch on, because some people, I call it destination disease, right? It's like, I'm going to be successful when I get that.
Yep.
Right? So talk a little bit about that to help an entrepreneur that's hearing this, that's going, hey, I want to manifest X into my life.
Yeah, I could sum this one up really well. So most people focus on what do they need to do, right? They say, okay, I want to get here. How am I going to do it? Well, I need to do this, and then I need to do that. And once I do that, then this person will be able to do this for me, and then I can go and do that, and then this thing can happen, and then finally I can go and get that, and then I'll be here. Mm-hmm. But that's not the way the world works. We live in a universe of unlimited possibilities, and when you expect things to happen a certain way, they don't happen that way, almost ever, especially if there's many things that have to get you there. Most people are focused on the outcome. And when the outcome is not what their expectations are, they feel separation from the outcome. They feel lack. They feel stress. They feel anxiety. And then they get those feelings, and those feelings produce thought patterns that don't push them toward where they want to go. Yeah. So instead of focusing on what do you need to do and attaching yourself to the outcome, what I like to do is focus more on who do I need to be, meaning what type of person do I need to be? Yeah. Do I need to be more compassionate, more loving, more giving, more happy? And know that if I can feel that way, my thought patterns, which are derived from my subconscious, and they're, I like to look at, the way you feel is really just an energetic pattern, right? Like 100 years ago, we couldn't measure X-rays. 100 years ago, FaceTime, Wi-Fi wasn't a thing, right? Yeah. The way you feel is a vibration, essentially. And we can't measure it because it's too fast. We don't have instruments to measure it, but it is. It's the way you feel is a vibration. You can feel it.
Like there is a definite feeling that you get from people that are in that state.
Yeah, and you ever notice how like there's certain people that you're just like really attracted to, you want to spend more time around because they vibrate a certain way. And when you feel that way, you attract thought patterns that are equal to your feeling.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on what do I need to do and being attached to the outcome, you focus on who do I need to be and letting go of the outcome and knowing, that since there's unlimited possibilities, that could happen. Meaning, okay, I'll give a crazy example. Yeah. There could be, a bird can fly into the window right now and someone can get up and open the window and then, this podcast can be shut down and it never comes out, whatever. That's a ridiculous example, but there's unlimited things that could happen. We live in an unlimited universe that's billions of years old that we can't really comprehend. Yeah. So if you can feel the way you want to feel and you can vibrate at that capacity, you don't need to worry about the outcomes because things are going to happen that you don't expect to happen.
True.
And if you're attaching yourself to that, it inevitably causes you to feel differently. Yeah. And then it's a paradigm because when you feel differently, then you think differently and you don't get propelled towards where you want to go.
I love that.
So I like to spend time in the morning, first thing in the morning. I have a walking formula I use. Yeah. I call it the perfect walk. I'm actually writing a book about it right now.
Yeah.
And you like to run, people like to meditate, whatever it is, there's solitude where you get to feel a certain way. Yeah. I do a walking formula because it hits all the different parts of my being that I want to do. It's basically the first part is opening your heart, feeling love. Second part is feeling your power. Third part is a moment of letting go and being totally present. Yeah. Fourth part is feeling connected to God or source or whatever you believe in as a greater power. Yeah. And the last part's a celebration. Yeah. And when I go through this, I feel all these things. I've activated all these parts of myself. And by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I've done the work for the day. Time to let go of the outcomes and try to be in the present moment and know that I'm being guided to where I need to go because I feel this way.
Yeah.
So the most people focus on what do I need to do? They have outcomes that are not what they expected and they attach their emotional being to the outcome, which propels them in the wrong direction.
And I think you're that idea of being attached to an outcome. Right, I think this is the piece to focus on too, right? Which is the destination disease, right? It's my outcome is, I'll never forget, I told my coach, and I don't think I've shared this with you, but I remember sharing with my coach at one point. I think I'd had Luxury Magazine for 2 years, and I told him, I said, I finally figured out my burning desire. I'd read Napoleon, Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
And I had been looking at chapter 2 for so many years going, okay, what is my burning desire? So I figured it out. I wrote it down. My burning desire was $500,000. Right? Yeah. That was my burning desire. I called my coach and I'm like, I've got my burning desire. I want to have $500,000 in my bank account. And I'm like so pumped. We're on the phone. Now, Cindy Mendelson was from New York. Sid, if you're out there, please reach out. Sid goes, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. And I remember sitting there, it was just like, but it's my burning desire. Like how do you say that's stupid? You know what I mean? But what he shared with me was this idea is that I was attaching myself to a very specific outcome, right? Without the idea of like, hey, who are you gonna be? Like, what are you trying, what are you trying to become?
Yep.
Because what you're trying to become will lead you to whatever it is, because maybe it's more than 500,000.
Yep.
Maybe it's more than the Lamborghini.
Yep.
So that outcome piece, I think, is critical. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. I mean, I've totally shifted the way so like there's another concept that's pretty interesting. And it kind of describes what we were just talking about, but in a different light. And I will say before I even get into that, understanding something conceptually is good, right? Like people listening to this or reading Napoleon Hill, whatever, it's good.
Yeah.
But when you experience it, it's 1,000 times more powerful. So when you do these things and you internalize them, since when we're talking or we're reading or we're listening, we're communicating through language. Language was created to close a separation, a gap.
Yeah.
Right? There's things that are way more powerful than language can explain. So when you're reading something and you're internalizing it, it's good, but you need to do it and you need to experience it.
True.
So that's just the first thing I want to say.
Yeah.
Second thing is, one way to describe this whole thing that we're talking about is a kind of a newer concept that I've been talking about is linear creation versus multidimensional creation.
Okay.
Most people operate with linear creation. So again, I need to do this first, and then that can happen. And then finally when I get here, I can go raise that money, and then I can go, go to this guy, and then finally we'll get bought out here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Something will happen differently. Multidimensional creation is, how do I need to feel? What does the guy who got there feel like? How can I feel that way right now? Yeah. And now I need to believe that when I feel that way, I'll get there.
Yeah.
And I may get there way faster than I thought I could. And maybe it takes a bit longer than I thought. Or maybe I don't get there. Maybe I get somewhere else that's much greater.
Or beyond.
So internalizing multidimensional creation on a daily basis, because the other problem is we wake up, what's the first thing that comes to most people's minds? It's the problems from the day before. Oh, what do I have to do today?
Yeah. Okay,
what's my calendar today? And it's a vicious cycle when you don't take the time in the morning to realize what you are.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have these realizations, but then you start a new day, you kind of wake up, you're born again into the world. And most people think, okay, the problem from yesterday pops up, or I have this to do or that to do. And now it's a cycle, right?
Yeah.
So if you can take time in the morning, which is why a morning routine is really important, and it doesn't even really matter what you do as long as there's some kind of solitude in there. I like to walk because it's simple, it's fun, it's easy, it works.
Yeah.
But you take the time and you realize all these lessons. It's not important. It's necessary to take that time in the morning to realize. Otherwise, you're going to go through the same cycle, same thought patterns.
True.
And you can look at it from an easy to understand, or you can think that there's higher power. Whatever it is, if you're having those thought patterns on the same on the daily basis, you could imagine. Okay, well, when you remember your problems, you feel the same way you felt yesterday. You're going to manifest the same thing again.
Yeah.
Or you feel the same problems in the morning, so your thought patterns are going to lead you down the same path again today, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
The important thing is taking that time in the morning to realize what we are, where the conversation goes deeper. It's like, well, what are we?
Yeah, it goes part of your walk. To open up, right? You open up your heart to what's going on. Gratitude.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a piece that a lot of people miss.
Oh yeah.
Is that that being able to be thankful that we, number one, live here in the U.S. You know what I mean? I mean, like,
there's unlimited things.
We're the greatest time ever, from an entrepreneurial standpoint too, right? But just starting with that can really shift your vibration.
Yeah. I mean, another thing to realize is that we have people say we have limited decisions we can make in a day. We have limited thoughts we can have in a day. It all comes down to we have limited amounts of energy that we can use for the day.
Yeah.
And when you wake up and you remember your problems from the day before, it triggers you into a fight or flight mode.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
your energy is not in you to create now. Now it's externally, and it's all over the place, and you're thinking all these thoughts, and your mind is there to protect you, right? It's to serve you. But it's actually not serving you. Your mind is just telling you all the worst case scenarios for the most part, and it's causing you stress. And now we live in a time where there's so many things going on, so many distractions that we don't even know where the stress is coming from. It might be something as simple as, oh, I need to email that guy.
Yeah.
Or it might be like a comment you read on Instagram first thing in the morning. You don't know where it's coming from, but when you have those stressful thoughts, you're in a fight or flight mode, your energy is external. So you don't have the energy internally to manifest with.
Yeah.
So when you can just wake up, realize, and remember that just by staying in the present moment, you have way more power to create from that space.
100%.
Then it makes sense to do that.
Yeah. This is this idea of living in the with your eyes in the rearview mirror, or living with your eyes forward, right on the windshield that's right in front of you. It can be very easy to constantly be looking backwards. Like, what if? Yeah. Or, oh, I wish I didn't, all these problems. But if you can look forward and focus on what's in front of you, or internally, right? Like what you're saying is kind of really work on who you are on a daily basis. So what do you think was the biggest change that you were able to make, as you went down this journey from plant-based to self-development to other classes? What do you think were the first two big things that really clicked that have made the biggest difference in your life?
So, yeah, I've done these plant medicine journeys I told you about, and through those experiences, I've internalized some of these lessons way deeper than just conceptually. And like one of them is, it's so simple, right? It's like life is all about love.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to like someone listening right now? And the thing is, it means something different to you as you grow.
Yeah.
So like when I realized life is all about love, I realized that, okay, if I just take a moment and realize like in this present moment right now, everything's perfect. The only thing that's not perfect is my projections of the future, which are not there yet, or my memories of the past, which don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So if I'm in this very moment, everything's perfect right now, right? And if life is all about love, it's just all about feeling perfect in the moment. You start giving more to people. You live in a place like, for example, many people are in relationships and they look at it from a selfish perspective. What can I get out of this, right? Yeah. That's what the mind and the ego is always looking. What can I get out of this? Back in my early days of my relationship, it was like, okay, I'm gonna fly. We're gonna fly somewhere, but I don't want to buy a first class ticket for her, right? It's like I'm not getting anything out of that.
Yeah.
And what does that do? What does that cause you to feel? That causes you to feel resentment. That causes you to feel negative emotions towards that person.
Yeah.
But when you can shift to, I want to serve this person for the sake, because I love them and I want to give to them, you feel way better internally.
Yeah.
Your energy is still internally. Like, a silly little example. I might have told you this story, may not. I went to go get my blood work done at a LabCorp, and there was one person working. There was like 9 people in the waiting room, and she was taking my blood, and she was stressed out. And she's like, man, I wish I could have got my sweet tea from Sonic this morning. And my brain immediately was like, what are you doing drinking sweet tea in the morning? I was like, hold on a second. That's not a place of love.
Right.
So I was like, let me give this woman some love.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, like just start, talk and make her laugh, whatever. And then I left, and I was like, I have all the time in the world. Let me go get her sweet tea from Sonic. So I drove to Sonic, spent $1 on it, came back. I walked in, and she saw me and broke into tears, like from.
Oh wow.
And it wasn't about that she felt that good. Like, that's great, right?
Yeah.
But the emotion that I got from doing that was such a beautiful feeling that almost nothing could have replaced it.
Right.
And it was just because I was acting from a place of love.
Yeah.
Now I leave that experience. I feel amazing. Yeah. What kind of thought patterns do you think I have?
Yeah.
I have abundance. I have, limitless thoughts. If I would have acted the way my mind initially reacted, which is what the hell are you doing drinking sweet tea first thing in the morning? Yeah. I would have, she's doing this. She's stressed because of this, whatever. That doesn't serve me at all. That just makes me look at the world in a negative way.
Yeah, that's good.
So realizing that life is all about love means something different to you every time you look at it or as you grow. Yeah. But I'd say that was the most, out of all the lessons, when you derive it all down to the base, like that's the core. I
would imagine too, as a new father, right? Like new father, your son, I would imagine that even got like magnified like tenfold. Right? Like as a new dad.
Yeah. So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. As you know, the labor experience was crazy. We talked about that. You had similar experience.
Oh yeah.
And it was long story short, we did the home birth, didn't work. She was in labor for 3 days. We rushed to the hospital. Baby's heart rate dropped. I'm up for 3 days. So I have all these negative thoughts like, oh, am I going to lose my wife? I'm going to lose my baby. Like horrible thoughts were coming to my brain. And I'm like stop thinking that. It was the most fearful, stressful day of my life. And then when my son was born, the next day was filled with the most love I've ever felt. Yeah. So it's like pain always has an equal or greater pleasure on the other side of it if you can stick it through. Yeah. And then, a few nights later, I'm in bed with, my wife and baby, and I'm like, I don't really care about anything else in the world except for this right now.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just another lesson that comes with life.
Yeah.
And, you can learn these things you don't need to have a baby to learn these things.
Yes.
But when you live in the same cycles every day, you don't learn any of this stuff. That's why it's so important to realize and remember and take the time in the morning to reset yourself.
Yeah.
And you naturally do this because you're a runner and you get up and you exercise and you have your moments of solitude.
Yeah.
And you may not even realize how great that is for you. Yeah. Most people don't do that. Most people wake up, they eat breakfast, they get in the car, and they drive to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they get home, they're too tired, and now they watch a Netflix show and they go to sleep.
Yeah.
Most people.
Yeah, for sure. You know, one of the probably the most powerful thing I started doing and it's funny, my mom found my middle school journal. Okay, like I have a spiral of a middle school journal, and I didn't realize I was a journaler in like middle school and whatnot. But I've been journaling since about 2000. Yeah, 2000. I started in 2000, and I started as a teacher journal. It was like my journal that I would write for all when I was a teacher, and I would just write stories. I would write things that was going on in my life. I used it as almost like my. You know, when I was reading from the Bible, I would write out different things that I wanted to remember. And anyway, so journaling has become probably like that piece of your walk, right? Like that piece of, hey, it's not just, hey, I had tacos last night. It's more of like an introspective what is going on. It's where the whole idea of my why that I shared on your podcast, you know, I talk about my granddaughter, why I want to work out because I want to live long enough to see, you know, my granddaughter. But the idea is even if in those moments, that quiet space of journaling, writing down some of those thoughts, and I always laugh because my wife and I talk about this, and my wife is like, I don't want to write down some of my thoughts. And I was like, I said, well, that's probably the best reason why you should,
yeah.
right?
Because
whatever that is that they're thinking, even if it is in a vibration that's not necessarily what you would feel like is positive, whatever it is, it's giving you an insight to where you're at.
Yeah.
And getting it on paper can have you look at it and start reflecting.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
So there's a couple of points there. I have like 3 points I want to talk about on that one.
Yeah, please.
If you have emotions that you're worried about, those are things that you need to get out. Otherwise, they store themselves deep inside of you, and then they change the way you see the world. And by releasing them, great, right? Another point is we have millions of thoughts every day. We're very complex. So we don't know how we feel, why we feel certain ways, and when you write, you can dive into something and you can get clarity on it. You can work with yourself as opposed to just thinking about doing it. The third point is someone might journal and they might have a great experience, and then the next day they remember what their experience was like, and they're like, well, I don't need to journal today. I know what I'm going to get out of it already. And their mind is very good at convincing them not to do it.
True.
Just like meditating or walking. Oh yeah, I had that experience. I know that experience. I don't need to actually have the experience again. But when you do it again, it's way different or way greater than you could have imagined. Yes. So your mind will keep you from doing things like meditation, for example. I've went through this cycle many times where I started meditating. I'm literally calling people. I had the most amazing experience today. I feel amazing. And then my mind gets into a cycle where it's like, oh, you've meditated enough. Yeah. You already got the benefit from it. You don't need to actually meditate to get the benefit of it. You already know what the benefit is. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. And then I get into a pattern where I don't. And then I'm like, I need to start meditating again. And then the experience I have is 1,000 times deeper than what I could have thought the experience was.
100%. Yeah. And that kind of goes with exercise, right? Like the idea is, well, I've exercised and I've felt exhausted. You still got to exercise.
Yeah.
Right. Like no matter what, like if you want your body to last, like if health is wealth and we want our bodies to be in the best health, like, you know, my dad's 68 and he's, you know, still amazing. Working out, still hitting the golf balls, can hit it just as far as I can, just as strong. He's training my son right now.
That's amazing.
They're working out and lifting weights, and he's doing everything my son is doing, you know? And I sit there and I was like, man, Jared, we got to be the same way. We got to be 68 and working with our grandkids, right? Like, I mean, wouldn't that be the ultimate, you know, to me, I look at it as a full life to be able to do that with my grandkids. Come on.
That's what it's all about. But we get so caught up in our problems right now that we lose sight of those things.
Yes.
The thing is, like, and when it comes to working out, I feel like you have a lot of great habits. I'm the type of person that likes to look at like the why and like the deeper meaning behind it. So like when you're working out, you have these conflicts that happen in your head, right? You start running and your mind's like, stop running. And you're like, no, I'm going to keep going. And your mind's like, your leg hurts. No, it doesn't hurt. You're fine. And you and like you, for example, you win these battles every day.
Yeah.
And so the way I like to look at it is like there's your true self and there's your mind or your ego, you can call it, right?
Yeah.
Your true self is the part of you that's like when you feel inspired or motivated. It's like the part of you that like sees the future you. Like that's your true self, right? Yeah. Your mind is the thing that's like always trying to protect you, but it's not always serving you.
Yeah.
So when you go for a run, running is a great example, and you know better than anyone. You have all these inner conflicts. But the thing is, if every time you win one of those battles, you give a point to your true self. Every time you lose one of those battles, you give a point to your mind.
Yes.
So by not exercising, you don't really have that many opportunities to win battles with your mind. You may have a battle that comes up, after dinner. There's like, oh, should we get dessert? And like, again, nothing wrong with eating dessert. But if your true self is trying to lose weight, or your true self is trying to be healthier, then it doesn't serve you to eat dessert. But your mind is like, oh, give me that dopamine from the dessert. Yeah. And if you're not exercising, you don't have that many opportunities to win the battles.
Yep.
So exercising gives you the opportunity to win those battles, give power to your true self over your mind, which ultimately leads you to where you want to go, which is, from outside of just a physical perspective, the mental strength you get from it, from winning those battles over and over again, it makes it so that when you go into the office and you need to write an email, right? Your mind's like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Well, we don't need you right now. Yeah. We've already gotten the power, right? And it's like all of life is basically winning conflicts over your mind and staying on track. And working 100%. Working out is not only just working out your physical body, you're powering your true self to be able to win those battles in every other area of life.
Yeah, 100. There's a book about, have you ever read The Slight Edge? Have you ever heard about it?
No, I haven't.
It's a very fascinating book that was written. Jeff Olson wrote it, and it's a philosophy, right? It's simple, easy to do task, repeated consistently, gives you the life that you want to have.
Yep.
Simple, easy to do. It's easy to do and easy not to do.
Yep.
Right? And he just says that this philosophy is you almost imagine like there's two forks in the road, right? And it's like, okay, I could run today or I could choose not to run today.
Yep.
Right? But over time, the more that I say no leads me further away from the person that I want to be. The more that I say yes to what I want and where I want to go, that's the slight edge of taking you to the next to the next level. And he had studied all of the major speakers, motivational speakers at the time. There was actually a motivational television station at one point, and he ran it. This guy, Jeff Olson, ran it. And he's like, look, all these people were saying all of this stuff, but no one was getting people to the point of saying, hey, you've got to repeatedly make these decisions.
Yeah.
Right?
And you know what else happens when you make those repeated decisions? You build confidence.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a version of you that exists today, and there's a version of you that exists in the future. And that version of you in the future, again, from the slight edge, you can say, right? Yeah. One version's up here, one version's down here. Yeah. The version up here, so what happens is when you have those decisions, should I run or should I not run? Yeah. If you've made the decision already, like, hey, I'm going to run every day this week, and then you lose the battle, your subconscious mind, the part of you that's judging everything you do, is like, oh, like you didn't even run today, even though we said we were going to. All right, well, like that's the type of person we are, I guess, right? Yeah. Your confidence goes down. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to run every day this week, and you get up and do it every day, your subconscious that's judging you is like, we are strong. We could do whatever we say we're going to do. Now what happens is your confidence is higher, and then when opportunities come into your world, you either A, you're confident, so you're like, we can do that. B, you're not confident, and you're like, I don't think we can do that. Or C, you're so not confident that you don't even see it as an opportunity that could even be for you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to working out and business, for example, when you build that confidence, like for example, I was starting a business that was a bit out of my league last year. We were doing a software roll-up. Yeah. And I had never done it before. And I was like, I don't know who I am doing this thing, right? Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to do 75 hard, which is, a major confidence booster. Yeah. Because I know I need that extra confidence to be able to feel not like I'm imposter syndrome or a fraud. I feel like I could do this stuff. So I purposely implemented 75 hard right before I'm starting this new venture. So I have the confidence to be able to see the opportunities and feel like I could do them.
Yep. I love that. And 75 hard is not easy.
It's tough. It's a bunch of micro wins.
Yeah.
Each individual win's not hard.
Right.
Again, it's like, and if you lose one of them, you got to start over from day one.
That's right.
I don't think it's that hard.
Yeah.
I think that the people that consistently lose the battles, it's very challenging for because you got to get over that. But for someone like you
what killed me is the picture.
Which
I screwed up on
the picture.
I'm taking a picture of myself every day. I mean, like, how does that? All the things that would knock you out would be the
easy
picture.
one.
That's the easiest one.
That's a 12-second thing. Open your phone, take a picture. But
it's hilarious.
But you just put it in your calendar and you just do it. Or hey, I made my wife. I'm like, hey, make sure I don't go to bed without taking a picture.
Right. Yeah. No, that's huge. So go back into your journey. You come out of this crazy. You become a drop shipping guru. I mean, you became a guru in this space. Where you're speaking. And then where did Zendrop? I mean, you're the founder of Zendrop. How did that all play into this chapter, the chapter to where you are today?
So basically when I was drop shipping, I ran into a problem with a supplier where I was selling products. I was sending him money to ship them out, and he was not actually shipping them out. He was giving me fake tracking numbers. Oh, so, God. Which, whatever. It was a big problem at the time. He sent out 7,000 fake tracking numbers. $50 an order. You could do the math. Plus the chargebacks, refunds. It was like over $500,000 hit. So I was like, at that moment, I'm like, I wish there was a more reliable supplier. Anyway, that idea stuck with me for a little while. I was drop shipping and I was really good at it. Right, I recovered from it. I was really good at it. And then I remember we moved to Florida and I saw an ad for this guy who was teaching people how to build online courses. And I went onto his funnel, I opted into it. He asked me qualifying questions. I qualified. I got on a sales call, and I'm like on the phone with this guy. He's trying to sell me a program. I'm like, I just want to go have lunch with the guy that started it. How much? Yeah. He's like, well, those programs. I'm like, dude, you don't need to sell me. Just tell me how much it is to go get lunch with this guy.
Yeah.
It's like $10,000. All right, fine, $10,000 done.
Yeah.
Go to lunch with this guy, and I'm thinking like, this guy is crushing it selling this course on how to build courses, but he doesn't really have any history at being the best of anything.
Right.
And I'm the best at dropshipping.
Right.
So I'm like, I feel like if I built a course on dropshipping, I could do just as good or better than him.
Yeah.
I went to lunch with him, became friends with him. We made a deal. If I build you a dropshipping store that we could be 50-50 partners on, you document the whole thing and help me put the course together, and you build my funnel.
Yeah.
For the course.
And this was, you build it for him.
Yeah, I built him a dropshipping store. He documented everything. I built the course.
Yeah.
And then over the course of about 2 years, it became the biggest e-commerce coaching business in the U.S.
Holy cow.
We had about 50 employees. We had 25 sales reps. And I was spending probably, $500,000 a month on Facebook ads. And we had 200 to 250 booked calls on our calendar every day for our 25 sales reps. So people would go into my funnel, they'd be interested in working with us, they'd fill out a qualifying questionnaire, and then they'd book a call.
So you took his business and just
blew it to the next
level.
Not
even 10x, it was 100x, 1000x.
It was, we built something really good.
Yeah.
But I had a big inner conflict because I was becoming some of my Facebook videos had 50 million plus views.
Yeah.
I would go out even in other countries, and people would be like, "Oh, you're the e-commerce guy," and it was cool. But I'm like, I don't know if I want to be the e-commerce guy. And then on top of it, I had this group coaching program, right? And it was $5,000 for the year. We get on Zoom calls every week, and people would come into the calls, and we wouldn't really talk about e-commerce. We'd talk about personal development. And I realized the only people that would succeed who took my course were the people that understood personal development.
They already had to have a foundation in personal development.
It was either that or they weren't as scarred as other people, right? They didn't have as much trauma. So if somebody came, for example, let's say I did a call and two separate people were talking about. One person had all the technical knowledge in the world. They knew everything about ads. They knew everything about e-commerce. But they had low energy and they were skeptical about their success.
Yeah.
Versus another guy who knew nothing, didn't even know how to work a computer, but he was so excited about the opportunity to sell millions of products to billions of people, and he was really stoked. I would bet on that guy 100% of the time, and that guy would always win.
Wow.
So I was becoming the e-commerce guru, and we were selling, we were doing multiple 8 figures in selling courses and coaching and masterminds. And people were paying me $50,000 to come spend 2 days with me in Florida, and it was it was a thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to shut it down.
Right.
So I was like,
but I'm curious, what was it? Because somebody hearing that, even from my perspective, I think about that. Why didn't you want to do it? What was the conflict, the rub, where you were just feeling this is not what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few things. Number one, most people that would buy our program wouldn't end up succeeding, not because the program wasn't good.
So there was a lack of success that it bothered you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it bothered me selling someone a program and then knowing that 90% of them wouldn't succeed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't from the lack of good quality content or a good formula. Obviously, it worked.
Yeah.
But it was because people were looking for a shortcut, a way to get rich quick, and I didn't want to sell that. So that was the first thing.
Okay.
Second thing was there was a lot of people that were copying me that were like younger, and they would do like 50 grand on a Shopify store and then build a course and copy my funnel. And I was like, I don't really want to be associated with this world of people. And I wanted to like go to that. I wanted to, go from the version of me to like, I want to be like a Mark Cuban when I'm older, or like, maybe not Elon Musk, but like someone, I want to be one of the best entrepreneurs in the world.
Yeah.
So, and you can't really do that in the course. I mean, you could, but I wanted to pivot to building a platform.
Yep.
And basically, I had
that
built
makes total sense. I get it now.
We had 500,000 people on our email list and Facebook groups with 100,000 plus people and tens of thousands of students. So I was like, if I can build this supply chain, the issue that I had, and launch it to my community, we could probably grow it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, all right, let's build Zendrop. And that was the beginning of that was like back in 2018. We started building it. Yeah. And building a software platform is challenging. Building a software platform back then was harder than it is now. And building a software platform that integrates with a logistics company in China adds a bunch of challenges to it.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, today we have over 1 million users. We're doing, we're very profitable, growing year over year.
Yeah.
But there have probably been 50 times where I thought we were going to not make it.
Wow.
Like talking about there's highs and lows in all this stuff.
Right. So talk about one of the biggest lows in Zendrop.
The biggest low by far in Zendrop was, so we launched the company back in August of 2019.
Okay.
And this is right before the pandemic started.
Yeah.
All of our products ship from China, and they ship on commercial airlines. So they get on a plane and they ship to the U.S. to a distribution center, and then they ship out from there.
Okay.
When COVID hit, there were no commercial airlines.
There's no flights.
So get this. The timing could not have been worse. We launched in August of 2019. We did like maybe 100 grand our first month, maybe 250 grand our second month. Within the first 3 or 4 months, we hit $1 million month.
Yeah.
We were growing hockey stick growth.
Yeah.
And right when we caught that,
March 2020, just
done.
Fell out.
Couldn't fulfill an order. Now we have 100,000 new users that trust us because we told them what we can do, and something completely out of our control came in, and we have thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of orders that we can't ship.
Yeah.
So we're trying to pivot, put them on boats, and we're promising 5 to 10 day shipping.
Yeah, you can't do that on a
Our
boat.
shipping was 60 to 90 days.
Yeah.
Like literally, it was the worst case scenario. And although anyone knows like COVID wasn't our fault, our customers,
they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
We paid you for this. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
So we went from like $1 million back to almost zero. Wow. And not only that, I did a big push for this platform. So people are like, oh, Jared gets this platform. Blah, blah, blah. People are like, hey, can we get on an interview with you? We want to hear about what happened. And it was like, man, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe this is just out of my league.
Yeah. So a lot of doubt crept in.
Oh, yeah.
So then what? Obviously, the plane's coming back, and that started to slowly come back. But how were you able to ride the storm?
Man, it was hard without this personal work, without this getting up early and realizing what I am and realizing that things don't happen the way you expect them to. They happen differently, but you'll end up further along than you expected. Remembering that every day was a battle between that and the stress, and I just was like, and not only was it hard for me to ride the storm, I had a whole team that I had to keep inspired and motivated.
Yeah.
And there was a point early on where I had to cut everyone's salary in half.
Oh, what year? What year was that?
That was
what year?
In 2020.
In 2020.
Yeah, like my leadership team, I was like, guys, we're not going to survive. I was like, okay, we need to get to this point.
How many people on the team at that? 50? Did you have, you didn't have 50 on that team.
At that time, we maybe had like 15 people on the Zendrop team.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I know we can do this. This is how we're going to do it, but we're not going to survive unless we, cut these expenses.
And you made the decision, and then from that leadership perspective, did that come from a walk? Like, what made you decide, hey, we need to cut salaries?
Well, it was a lot of reflection, a lot of looking at numbers. You know, I had a really good team, good CFO, good COO. Like we're like, this is the only way we're going to survive. If we can get to this revenue by this date, we'll be able to come out of it alive.
Okay.
But we kind of started from ground zero with a lot of skepticism, with people on Reddit, you know, talking shit. Like it was really hard.
Yeah.
But we knew that we had something that was really good. We just had to get there, basically.
Yeah.
And honestly, it took me about 2 years after that to become profitable. Wow. Meaning I wasn't taking a salary. I was investing my own money into the business for 2 years. I drew myself down, not to zero, but like from having millions of dollars to being like under $1 million.
Yeah.
And, you know, I living in this beautiful house, and now I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna lose everything? Like, I like basically was getting to a point where I don't know if I may have to, like, I used to have this fear that I was going to have to become an Uber driver.
Right.
That was my biggest fear.
Right.
And I was like, but looking back, it's funny because the story is a great story in my mind now, but during it, the pain and the stress was very high.
Yeah.
And most people at that point, they give in. But if you look at anyone's success story, they all go through that not once, not twice, not 10 times, 100 times. Yeah. You know, and you have to keep yourself in the state of mind that allows you to see opportunities and see pivots. You know, we saw some opportunities last year, for example. You remember we went to Brazil?
Yes.
I was in Brazil every month for 6 months. Like those things I would not have been able to see if I was constantly waking up and remembering my problems and going through those same thought patterns.
Yeah.
I was able to see those things by waking up, letting go of everything, reconnecting with my truth, reconnecting with my purpose, opening my heart, and then starting my day. Yeah. You know, and then you only need, I mean, when your company gets to a certain level, you need one good idea a month. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because you get bigger, and then now you're not steering like a jet ski anymore. Now you're steering a yacht or a cruise ship. Yeah. You can't do that much stuff anyway. Right. So you need one good idea a month. Right. And that's really what I've been focusing on is like, you know, do we just do this new thing? Do we keep going, you know, keep basically staying on the path that we're on? Yeah. And last year we just really doubled down on like organizing our data so that we can make sales, make action. You know, we started doubling down on the things that are working, implemented a few features that make it way easier for people to use our platform, investing in the tech resources to build something better. Whereas early on with my scarcity mindset, I'm like, I don't know if I want to invest this much money in tech, which I don't even know if it's going to work if I can't test it. Now I'm in the mindset of if it takes us 6 months to build it, we're going to take 6 months to build it. If we're going to have to spend this much, we're going to spend this much. Yeah. And if you look at anyone, you know, I mean, look at Elon Musk. Yeah. You know, he almost went bankrupt many times.
Tesla almost went belly up.
Yeah, Tesla and SpaceX almost went belly up. Yeah. And people see the Elon Musk on Twitter, you know, he's the 200 billionaire, like, you know, he's happy, life is great for him. You know how much stress that man probably went through?
He's in a lot of stress. Yeah.
I mean, maybe now life's great, and I'm sure he has the spiritual side to him. I think anyone who's successful does. Yeah. But people only see the outside. They don't see the inside, and it's never sunshine and rainbows for a long period of time. Every low is followed by a high. Every high is followed by a low. The key is when you zoom out, your lows and highs, they keep going up a little bit. Yep. You know, but when you're zoomed in, you're in a low and you can't see a way out. Yeah. Something happens unexpected. You come back up. Oh, things are great. What the heck? How is this happening? You know, you just have to ride the wave.
But you said, I think what you said though, I think it's the critical piece for all entrepreneurs, right? There's something that has to ground you in between the highs and lows. Yeah. There's something that you have to always come back to. Right, whether you know, for myself, I love reading from the Bible. I love the church family that I have, and knowing that this foundational piece is like, look, no matter how high the highs are, no matter how low the lows are, there. You've got to have something foundational that's holds you steady in those storms, so that you don't believe that the lowest of lows is the lowest of lows, right? Or you don't believe that the highest of highs is the highest of highs. Yep. You've got to have that foundation to know the difference and to be like, hey, you know, I've got to be grateful for what do I have right now in this moment.
And that's why I think religion is amazing. Yeah. I also think that a lot of religion is misinterpreted and misconstrued and taken too literally. But if you look at all the religions in the world, they all really teach the same thing, which is don't be attached to the outcomes. You know, be attached to the good things or the bad things. Love more, be in your center. I mean, if you interpret the Bible, you can derive all this stuff out of it. If you interpret Buddhism, you can learn all this stuff out of it. All the religions kind of teach the same thing, that you have energy inside of you that creates. So I didn't grow up religious. I'm technically Jewish, but I didn't learn anything about religion or God growing up. Not until I started doing plant medicine journeys did I even understand what God is.
Yeah.
But I believe what I believe is probably very similar to what you believe in different words. Yeah. In different ways. Yeah. But I think it's important to have something.
You got to have something that grounds you, right? Yep. Like something that grounds you and calls you higher, right? Without that, if you think you're going to go on this journey and just figure it out and then not have a routine in the morning, not have a plan, not have a journal, not have a way to start the day in a positive mindset, it's really tough.
Yeah, and it's even tougher.
No matter the size of the business.
Right, for sure. And in today's day and age, there's so many things that you can do that give you hits of dopamine where you're, well, should I do this practice? I should just open Instagram. Yeah. You know? Well, let me scroll on Instagram. Oh, and you're like, you're numbing your mind, but you're feeding it dopamine. Yeah. So it's sitting there and you're becoming a puddle of mush, but you're giving it enough dopamine to feel good. Yeah. And most people choose that over the other stuff. Yeah. It's easier. Hey, I'm just going to scroll on TikTok for a little while. Yeah. You know, and not only are you feeding yourself dopamine without having to achieve anything, you're also killing your attention span. Yeah. You're also watching videos for 10 seconds at a time. Okay, now when that thing comes up where you got to write an email and spend 45 minutes on crafting it, your mind is so used to just scrolling every 10 seconds, you can't focus. Yeah. You're not getting the immediate dopamine out of it, right? If it has to do with like writing an email, for example, the dopamine comes from the outcome, right? Yes. From the guy answering you and you getting the thing that you wanted to get. But it's so rather than choosing that thing to ground you, many people just choose to scroll on Instagram or scroll on TikTok, and it's more and more prevalent now than it ever was before, and it's only going to get more and more prevalent in the future. So knowing this stuff is more and more important now than it ever was before.
The self-development piece, I agree. I 100% agree. And I think some people think of it as kind of like a woo-woo, like they think of it as like, oh, it's out there. What is meditation? You know what I mean?
Because they haven't experienced it.
It's, they haven't experienced it. I think one piece, and then I think it's also a piece of just some people don't really want to be aware of who they are. Yeah. They don't really want to dig deep into who they are and seeing the good, the bad, seeing what's going to come out of all of that. And that's the piece that we all need, because when we know who we are and we can really dig into that, the possibilities are endless. They really are endless, as you were talking about earlier. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say, entrepreneur listeners right now, first steps, they're like, I have this dream, I have this vision of a business or something that I want to do beyond where I'm at in this job. What would you say to them?
I would say two things are really important to comprehend, and after comprehending them, you need to experience them. But the first thing is that you need to have a vision and you need to have discipline, right? So, but the problem is people are like, okay, what's my vision? And they're like, oh, I don't really know. Oh, maybe that's my vision, whatever. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. You need to have a vision, but you need to have a vision from a high energy state. Okay. So get out, put on some music, go for a walk, go for a run, clear your mind. Let your intuition guide you to that vision, right? You don't think your way to the vision. Feel your way to the vision.
I like
Once
that.
you feel something that resonates with you, hold on to it. Write it out. Dive deeper into it, visualize it more. Yeah. So come up with a vision. Okay. And then understand that discipline is pretty much everything. Discipline is the determination of your self-confidence. Discipline is the determination of what's going to drive you forward. Okay. So discipline and a vision, understanding the concept that those two things are basically how you manifest in life.
I love that.
So understanding that and now practicing it, right? So go literally, like, if you're listening to this right now, get up, go for a run, feel your intuition. That brings you to a vision. So understanding that concept and experiencing it. And then the second thing is what we talked about earlier, which is stop focusing so much on what you need to do and start focusing a lot on who you need to be.
Yeah, I love that.
And once you have that shift and you can let go of the outcomes and you don't hold on to everything that happens and separate yourself from where you want to be because you feel a lack, because things aren't happening the way you want them to go, remember that the way you feel creates a vibrational pattern that attracts thoughts at the same level. So if you feel great, you're going to get thoughts that are going to propel you to be great.
Yeah.
If you feel stressed, you're going to get thoughts that are going to make you feel more stressed. Even something as simple as like, if a husband and wife want to have a baby and they keep saying, we need this, we need to have a baby, we need to have a baby, we need to have a baby. Well, what are you going to get? You're going to get more need to have a baby rather than you feel the emotion of having it and let go of the outcome, and it will happen the way it's supposed to or better than you expect it to.
Right.
So those two things.
Or easier than you expected. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, too, because I had this, literally yesterday, I had this experience with golf with my son, right? And playing golf with my son and my dad, and we're out there with my dad and my stepmom, and we're playing, and my dad gets a little. My dad and my son have a very same temperament.
Yeah.
They're easily frustrated, right?
Yep.
The game easily frustrates them, and I have I get a little frustrated, but for the most part, I can kind of stay in a focused standpoint of understanding that I'm going to have bad shots. I'm really not that great.
Right.
So I shouldn't get that worked up.
Right.
If that makes sense, right? And so at one point, my son he's just having a day. My dad's having a day.
Yep.
And we're driving, and I literally look at my son, and I said, you realize that I will always beat you
if you feel this way
when you are in this state.
Yeah.
When you're in this vibration, this state of just
Exactly.
being frustrated,
Exactly.
and upset that you missed a shot, right?
Right.
I will always beat you. I
Yeah.
said, now who should actually win
Right.
between you and I? I said,
yeah.
you should win.
Right.
And my son should win. He's a better golfer.
Right.
I said, the better golfer should always win if you keep this vibration positive.
Yeah.
And that's the same for business.
Yeah.
It's the same. If you're going to complain about everything that goes wrong and constantly be putting it out there as an energy force of like, these are all the things that are going wrong, you're going to get that back.
Yeah, but the other thing to note, though, is that we're not perfect, so you're going to feel those ways, or you're going...
For sure.
The key then is how fast can you rebound?
Right.
Right? So it's like, okay, you hit the shot, you feel the frustration. You're not perfect. You're not going to just like, oh, I don't feel any frustration. You're going to feel it.
Yes.
Right? But golf, for an example,
yes,
leave it there. Then go do your next one, right?
Yeah.
Or in life, for example, let's say you're going to run every day for 7 days.
Yeah.
And day 3, you get up, you're tired, you don't do it.
Yeah.
The next day, it's really easy to not do it again because you're in that energetic pattern of not doing it.
Yeah.
But when you realize that, okay, if I bounce back right now, I'm actually not much below from where I was. But if I continue down this path, I'm gonna get back way down the path of where I was.
Yep.
So how fast can you rebound is actually...
It's critical.
It's critical.
Yes.
So, okay, bounce right back.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you did it. No worries. Let it go. Bounce right back. So that rebound effect, I think,
the
is
rebound effect is critical. I look at it, and especially for my son, and you look at the pros. I mean, I don't know if you saw this. Was it this? Yeah, it was this weekend. Rory on 18 needs a birdie. He's at the Scottish Open. He hits it a little left, but it wasn't in a bad spot. It was okay.
Yeah.
It's a 204, I think it was a 204-yard shot into a 20-mile-an-hour wind. He hit a 2-iron.
Wow.
Think about, you know how far a 2-iron would go for Rory?
Yeah, by 280.
It went exactly 207 yards.
Wow.
He was 10 feet from the hole.
Wow.
Right? But he has to have a birdie to win the whole tournament.
Right.
Par goes into a playoff. But you're sitting there and you're thinking, his drive wasn't a great drive.
Oh, yeah.
But like he made up for it on the next shot. He rebounded. Same thing happened to the guy who was winning the tournament. He hit one way out left, ends up birdieing the hole, shoots at 64. But it's how you rebound.
Yeah.
That is critical in business, and it's critical just life in general. We're not going to be perfect. You're going to feel frustration, but how you rebound is critical. So think of what was the biggest determining point when you were cutting salaries, right? To how you rebounded from that negative thinking of things that were going on at that time. How did you rebound so fast?
Yeah, it wasn't like that's kind of a macro event, right? There's a lot of people involved. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to cut your salary for a day and we're going to bring it right back. It was more, okay, now that we've done this, I need to really hone in the vision of how we're going to get to the next level and make sure that I talk to everyone involved and make sure that they're 100% on board.
Okay.
But if I was operating from a place of, oh, we had to cut everyone's salary. Oh, this is going to be horrible. They're all going to hate this. And, I wouldn't be able to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So I needed to personally rebound to the level of enthusiasm that I had beforehand and, hone in on that vision and feel like the person that already achieved it and then give my energy to the team. Yeah. Give it right to them. And
from a positive standpoint.
Yeah.
From a positive vibration.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then, when you're managing a team and your company's growing, we're not a huge company, but we have about 45 people on the team now.
Yeah.
Most of my job is making sure that our leadership team is feeling good.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really that good at any of the things that they're doing. I'm not the best at anything on the company except for really seeing the vision.
Yeah.
So my job is interacting with the leadership team on a daily basis to make sure that they're fired up. Or if they're not, I become aware of it and I make sure things are good. So I'm really like a psychologist.
Yeah.
That's kind of my role.
You're like the coach. You know what I mean? You're coaching. You're developing.
Yeah.
You're developing talent.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Right. Any book that you recommend that you're like, if you're a new entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur and you're starting to like dive into the self-development, what do you typically recommend?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, my book, Overnight Success, it's a playbook for your first inner breakthrough in business.
So what's the title again?
Overnight Success.
Overnight Success. I love it.
That's it was written specifically for like the new entrepreneur, the person that needs to outperform their belief systems and get to that next level and raise
easiest
their
way to get it
on Amazon.
Amazon? Okay, perfect.
I love the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma.
Yeah? Yep.
It's a good story. It's an easy read.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot of these lessons. I love Michael Singer. He wrote The Untethered Soul.
Oh, yeah.
Living Untethered, The Surrender Experiment. All of those books, highly, highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, I read the first one. I think it's Untethered Soul.
Yeah.
You
should read the next one.
Very thought-provoking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I even got Soren to get it.
That's one of those books that when you read it, you can read it a year later and it means a whole different, it has a whole different meaning to you.
I could see that.
And when you read it, your energy shifts too.
Yeah.
Like you feel it. But if you read his next book, The Surrender Experiment, it's basically his life story of like how he was like living in a van to create a multi-billion-dollar company by living these principles. And that's a great one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of great books you can read. Those ones are awesome.
Yeah.
But just remember, understanding something conceptually is 1,000 times less powerful than experiencing it.
True.
So you got to take the action. You got to get up early. You got to do the routines. It doesn't really matter what you do. As long as you pick something, stick to it, you build the confidence, you're able to see the opportunities, and you grow that way.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jared, how can people stay in touch with what you're doing? What's the easiest way for people to follow you from a social media standpoint?
Yeah, pretty much Instagram, YouTube. You can find me at Jared Goetz. My YouTube channel is Jared Goetz. And,
Excellent. Your podcast, how can people find your podcast?
Yeah, it's called Zen Hard. Zen Hard Podcast.
Yeah.
If you just look me up on any platform, you'll find the podcast.
ZEN? Zen Hard.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, Jared, dude, it's been awesome having you on the show, man. I love lots of insightful information for people. I love it. I can't wait to get back on the course again soon.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, my man. Take care.
Thank you.